The UH-1C XM-30, a rare American helicopter which occasionally appears in American heli tree every time a specific celebration is occurring. It is kind of similar to those helicopters like the BO-105CB2, Mi-24D on the Russian heli tree, or maybe even the IAR-316B, where the helicopters are not usually on sale until an anniversary or something special happens. But despite the high price, is this thing really worth it? What are its armaments, and generally, how can we play this thing in different game modes? Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bob Dickinson and welcome back to Vehicle Overview, a series where I try to review the vehicles in the fastest way possible. But before we do that, let's talk about its history. The history of the UH-1 Iroquois is very interesting. I already made a video about it several months ago. If you want a full dedicated video and an entire history about it, feel free to check the card on the top right of the screen. But generally, what you need to understand about this helicopter is that the UH-1C was developed to install brand new engines, the compatibility to install tow missiles, and generally increasing the weight lifting capacity of the helicopter. Now, during this time, the US Army did several testings with this helicopter as well. Like, for example, a 1mm cannon, the M61 Vulcan, which is literally installed on the aircraft such as F-104C, F-4E Phantoms, and many more. And of course, two 30mm cannons by the name of XM-140. Obviously, all of these were just a test, and the entire development really didn't went anywhere, especially with the introduction of the AH-1 Cobra. This was the short history of the UH-1C XM-30. Now let's get on with the armors and modules. Welcome to the Armor and Modular Protection Analysis, where we basically analyze the armors and modules inside of a vehicle. Today's helicopter is the UH-1C XM-30. Now the first thing we need to take a look at is the crew. This crew has a pilot and a gunner. The pilot is located on the right side of the aircraft, while the gunner is on the left. The crew, just like the earlier helicopters, doesn't have any kind of CCIP. However, it does have night vision, SPI, and a tow-compatible camera with somewhat of a decent zoom. This helicopter has two self-sealing fuel tanks with these fuel presets. The fuel presets on the Huey is generally not really that impressive, and the minimum fuel in itself is just usually more than enough. This helicopter has a single engine, which is called Lycoming T53L11. It does have decent response time, and overall it doesn't really feel that sluggish. And you don't even have to fight the collective pitch that much, as the engine itself is quite decent and it is responsive. At the end, you have the oil cooling system, transmission, traction of the control surfaces, and prop shafts. Now let's get on with the armaments. Let's start from the Mighty Mouse rockets. 19 on each pod, 2 per side, giving you 76 total. The Mighty Mouse rockets are generally quite decent for any kind of starter helicopter. It has decent penetration, decent explosive mass, the range is overall pretty good, and honestly the angle that they're installed generally feels quite comfortable. Unlike certain vehicle that I'm not gonna talk about for now. I'm talking to you, AH-1G. Engaging the enemy armored target, specifically at that low BR, can be quite decent. However, not having CCIP generally does give it quite a bit of challenge, which you have to learn by time. Up next, we have the ATGMs with the BGM-71C ITOW installed on both sides, 3 installed on each side, giving you 6 total. The BGM-71C ITOWs generally are good ATGMs comparing to the SS-11s. They have a very nice penetration and explosive mass, generally a very good maneuverability, and overall the range is quite decent. The range itself can be a game changer when you're playing heli PvE, as the SS-11 in itself was quite limited to 3 kilometers, meaning that you actually have to go face to face against Gepards so you could actually get a kill from them. But now with a tow-compatible camera and of course the tow missiles themselves, you can actually stay way above the limit of the Gepards and shoot them down without any kind of problem. You have miniguns that are installed in these configurations, which these two miniguns are actually turrets, and at the end you have the 40mm grenade launcher installed on the nose of the aircraft. This grenade launcher is quite decent. It has somewhat of a lackluster fire rate, but overall it packs quite decent amount of punch. This can be definitely noticed in heli PvE. It may not be really that impressive, but it is definitely something that you can use whenever you run out of ATGMs. And finally, we have the XM-30 cannons. one on each side, giving you this much ammo as well, installed exclusively on the UH-1C XM-30. Honestly, it is definitely a decent cannon. Of course, against low armored targets, you can definitely pack quite a bit of punch. However, against heavily armored targets, best thing you can do is to literally go on their rooftops or just their engine deck and shoot them down that way, which is definitely challenging. To be honest, it's really a gimmick and not really that useful. Oh, and I almost forgot, the penetration values is not really shown. But this is essentially a 30mm heat warhead, which can penetrate up to 37mm. This was all of the armaments that this helicopter used. Now let's get on with the mobility. When it comes to the mobility of the UH-1C XM-30, this helicopter really doesn't disappoint. And overall, the top speed really doesn't disappoint, and overall it feels quite nice. However, due to this helicopter actually using a semi-rigid rotary system, you can only do much with only 2 blades. But yeah, overall the experience itself is really decent for a starter helicopter, but yeah, as I said, you can only do much with 2 blades. Now let's get on with the game modes. When it comes to ground RB, this helicopter is a hidden gem. You have several playstyles in ground RB. You can roleplay as a rocket rusher, which this helicopter does quite decently if you actually know how to aim your rockets. You can become an anti-air helicopter, mounting all the miniguns and machine guns and go against the enemy helicopters or planes, or just use the ATGMs that are generally provided to you. The ATGM gameplay, to be honest, to my experience, I had the most fun with the UH-1C XM-30. Usually at this battle rating, you really don't have a lot of SPAAs that have man pads. Or I don't know why, but just for some reason, maybe they're not really that popular, but every time I roll out with this helicopter, yeah, I can butcher a lot of people. And even with that, you do have several SPAAs that do have the proxy fuse, or generally are incredibly accurate, such as Gepards or the Chinese SPAAs that I probably don't know the name of, but I'm gonna probably still mention it on the screen, and you really have to be careful on your maneuvers, as this helicopter is a semi-rigid rotary system, and sometimes it really does some wacky maneuvers and honestly, just be careful, okay? Dodge the bullets, but not to an extreme. But yeah, I do actually like this thing in ground RB, especially with my 8.7 lineup, which consists of M3 Bradley, prequel to the M3 Bradley, this poor bastard that I'm constantly up BRing, and finally, the Wish.com A4E early. Now let's get on with the Heli PvE. When it comes to Heli PvE, you are generally a very decent helicopter. You do have the premium bonuses, so you really shouldn't be worried about your grind. The only thing that you should be concerned and worried about is the game mode itself and its questionable reward system. But anyways, let's just see what type of objectives this helicopter excels at in Heli PvE. Destroying the enemy bombers and attackers is generally something quite decent, but honestly, it is something that you need to mount all of your miniguns at, and you have to constantly fire at the enemy because they're 7.62s and they don't hit as hard as something like a 50 cal or a 20 mil. And it is something that I wouldn't myself do or recommend really, but it is something that is absolutely possible. And no, do not rely on your 40mm grenade launcher, as that thing's velocity is just very much insulting, to say the least. Destroying the enemy assaults and defenses is something that you can absolutely shine with. This helicopter is appearing in the low-tier Heli PvE matchmaking, meaning that in the enemy assaults and defenses, usually you would see Shilkas, which only have 2.5 kilometers of range. If you had something like the SS-11s, it would still do the job right, but the TOW missile is generally very good for destroying heavily armored targets. The explosive mass is better, the speed is better, you can get them faster than your peers, and generally it feels quite comfortable. Or even after that, honestly, it generally feels quite incredible, because you do have decent quantity of it, and even after you finish your ATGMs, you can use your 40mm grenade launcher. Destroying the enemy convoys is really comfortable, as most of the time the range of the Gepards increased from the 2.5 kilometers that the Shilkas had to 3 kilometers. This shouldn't really be the case, but hey, this is Gaijin, they haven't updated Heli PvE in a year, so yeah. Unlike other helicopters where they have a 3.2 or 3 kilometers of range, ignoring the Falanga missiles, this ATGM overall really feels decent. With the 3.75 kilometers of range, you can literally enter hover mode, nosedive your helicopter, fire your ATGM, control it precisely so you can actually hit the frontal armor of the Gepard, or just, this entire compartment of it and save your team from the entire hassle of the SPAA, which, mind you, some of your teammates don't even have ATGMs. Engaging the enemy M113s, shots and AMX-13s will be really easy. Destroying the enemy bases is something that this thing can also do, but I mean, if there's nothing else to do and you're really tired and want to just chill a little bit, yeah, sure, you can do it. Pick up your rockets, pick up your TOW missiles, and start firing at the bases. This thing may not have bombs, unlike, you know, all the American helicopters, but yeah, it does actually feel quite nice. Landing and capturing enemy bases is something you can also do, as your maneuverability is quite decent, unlike, you know, the helicopter that can literally break Mach 1. Your maximum speed is actually quite decent, and you can instantly use your rudder to actually turn and stop. Although I have to say, you are not the fastest. So watch out for the friendlies, don't ram into them, and learn how to stop quicker. But yeah, at the end, is this helicopter really worth it?
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, post-editing Bob Dickinson over here. I just wanted you guys to know that I made this entire video off script, and I actually made this entire video in 2 days. But the question that I really wanted to ask you guys is that this helicopter's price is 8,900 and God knows how many-ish. It's around 9,000. Look at the other helicopters, like for example the Israeli Apache, the Swedish Mi-28A, or well, let's just say the T-129, the Mi-24P, the Hungarian version, the German version, and really ask yourself this question. Is the UH-1C XM-30 really worth it? Because this is the only helicopter that is actually available for Golden Eagles in the American tech tree. And I totally understand that Gaijin is using FOMO so they could, you know, force us to rush towards this helicopter and purchase it, but again, ask yourself this question. Is it worth it over an Apache or hell, even a K-50? If your answer is yes, well...
To me personally, I really like it. This helicopter is quite rare, and I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, the entire 30mm cannon thingy was nothing but a gimmick. It was just an excuse so Gaijin could actually sell a helicopter at this rank. But other than that, the ATGMs, the rockets, the mobility, they all feel quite decent, and they do perform quite nice in other game modes. So if you have an extra 50 bucks or, I don't know, 9,000 GE lying around, yeah, sure, why not? I would recommend it, but you actually need to learn quite a bit of things with this helicopter. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to like and subscribe, dislike it if you dislike it, or if you want to support my channel even further, you can also give a super thanks or join my YouTube membership if you want to. For now, this is me, Bob Dickinson, and thank you for watching.